In today's economy, the massive change that's taking place is that we are now partners with the buyer in a buying process. You need to think about yourselves as facilitating a buying process. So let's talk about how this works. First of all, we still have prospecting and research, except at this point, it's dominated by the prospect. The prospect is asking around. The prospect is seeking out referrals. The prospect is doing the networking, and the prospect is asking their friends and their family who they should be doing business with. In fact, the change is so radical that the studies that we're seeing now show that only 3% of all sales are transacted as a result of a cold call. Only 3%. 70% of all sales are transacted by somebody with an existing vendor, so someone I have a relationship with, or with someone that I know who has a relationship, so through a referral, 70%. So that prospecting is being controlled by the prospect. Why? Well, in 2008, a very interesting thing happened in the marketplace. The number of buyers decreased, and the number of sellers either stayed the same or went up. But regardless of whether they stayed the same or went up, the smartest companies and the best companies massively increased the amount of sales and marketing activities they were doing in the field. So what we had is this huge disparity. Fewer buyers, lots of activity, crashing down all these poor buyers, and they freaked out. They said, my goodness, I need a way to protect myself. I need to have a way to filter through all this information. And so they developed tactics to avoid sellers. And one of the things that they did was to start controlling the front end of that sales cycle. So now we get into qualification. What's interesting to me about the qualification is that buyers participate in the qualification. Now they ask as many questions of us as we do of them. If you think about it like a scale, we want to know, is the buyer have money, authority, and desire? They want to know, are they trustworthy, and are they worthy of my time? And only when those two pieces of qualification are balanced do we have the opportunity to make the sale. What's really interesting to me is that in the past, the buyer didn't know who we were until we made a call. Now, we don't know who the buyer is until they're ready to buy. So when we think about closing now, buyers are expecting, actually let me rephrase that. Buyers are demanding to participate in the closing process. In fact, what we're finding is that buyers are demanding to participate in the proposal or the plan development process. Closing is no longer something you do to a prospect. It's no longer an event at the end of the sales process. It's a teamwork-based process that happens while we're facilitating this joint buying process. So here's how we can take advantage of this. The best sellers that I work with make sure that the first proposal or the first plan that a prospect sees is not the final plan. They propose to their prospect that they implement a draft plan first. And they use that word very deliberately. Some of them even stamp draft right across the top to make sure that people don't get confused that this is a final or a draft plan. And they use language like this. They say, Janet, I want to make sure that we put the right plan in place for you and your business or your family. And here's what I propose. I'm going to go back to my office, put together a couple of ideas for you, and we can meet again next week to run through these ideas and carve out the best ideas for you. In the 5 or 6 years that our clients have been using this technique, I can tell you honestly, 95% of customers all agree to this plan. And here's the beauty. If they don't, then you know you've got work to do in the qualification system because your trial close has just not worked. But when they do, over 80% of these prospects buy. Why? Because when they have a hand in viewing the options and tailor making their plan to their needs, they don't say no to the final. People don't throw out the plans, the proposals, the programs that they help co-create.